What is going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. My name is Nelson, and in this crash course I'm going to teach you what you need to know about test-driven development. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, and also give me a thumbs up so I can keep on providing courses like this. So also, if you're not part of the Amigoscode group, go ahead and join, because we are now over 4,000 people learning how to code together, and the community is just growing every single day. So in this crash course, I'm going to take you through the journey of learning test-driven development. Test-driven development is something that you as a software engineer should know how it works, because it will make you a better developer. So there are many benefits just by using test-driven development. So for example, you'll spend less time debugging your code, because your code will be actually solid, right? So implementing to interfaces, as we all know, interfaces are always good in terms of mocking services and external services, and making sure that your tests are fast, right? So that's what we need. And there are many benefits, reducing costs and all other good stuff that test-driven development offers. So in this crash course, what I'm going to do is actually teach you how to test this little part right here, where this is actually part of the entire full course, right? But in this crash course, I want to teach you how we are going to use TDD to test a feature inside of this payment unit, right? So how does development will drive your, how does test drives your development? So that's what TDD is, right? And you'll see, it's not difficult. I'm going to break it down super simple for you, so that you come out of this crash course with some knowledge. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so to follow along with this course and make sure that you actually practice as well, what I want you to do is to navigate into this GitHub repository, where I'm going to leave the link in the description of this video. So go ahead and simply clone this repository. So this contains the entire code for the testing course. So right here, so this is the actual diagram. So basically, in this crash course, I'm going to show you a subset of this payment unit and how to perform test-driven development. So let me go back. So I'm going to do is clone this. So I'm going to press Command C, and then you can either use IntelliJ or your command line. So make sure that you have Git installed. So right here, I'm going to simply say Git and then clone, and then paste the actual URL. And actually, before I do that, let me simply cd into desktop and then run git clone and then that. There we go. So now I do have, so in my desktop, if I do an ls, you can see that we have software testing. Now inside of software testing, go ahead and cd, right? So change directories, software testing, and you can see that I'm inside of master. So this is the actual master branch. So what I want to show you is, so right here, I've got a couple of branches. So I've got 8 branches. So if I click on branches, there we go. And if I view more active branches, you can see that I do have the starting point, payment, stripe, so on and so forth. So this is what we're going to complete by the end of this crash course. So the branch 7, so 7-TDD. So what I want you to do is to switch to this branch right here, right? So 6 and then integration testing. So what I'm going to do is actually open the project with IntelliJ. So IntelliJ, and then open, and inside of my desktop, I'm going to open the software testing folder, and then open the pom.xml. Open, and then as project, and there we go. So if you want to learn more about IntelliJ, go ahead and check my website or my YouTube. I've got a full course just on IntelliJ, and it's pretty much one of the most popular courses out there for learning this awesome IDE. So right now you can see that if you check my cursor properly, so right here I can click on this button and this will bring up all the remote branches, including local branches. But the branch that I want you to check out is this one, origin/6 integration testing. So check out, and there we go. Now, to make sure that things are working correctly for you, go ahead and open up the software testing folder, and then source, and then test. And right here you should see that we have com.amigoscode.testing, and right here this is basically a bunch of tests that we wrote for this entire thing, right? So this course is packed with awesome content, unit testing, integration testing, mocking external services, testing the database, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So this is everything that you see here. So go ahead and make sure that you can run every single test. So right click on the package, so com amigoscode.testing, and then run tests. So this should work flawless for you. So just give it a second, and there we go. So you can see that we've got a couple of unit testing and some integration testing going on, and everything works. So if you can get everything up and running, it means that everything has worked for you and you have successfully checked out the code correctly. So I'm going to collapse that, and now inside of the main package, right? So main, and then Java, and then the actual package. So this is where we're going to add a new package and then learn about test-driven development. This is all for now. Catch me on the next one. All right, so let's go ahead and switch a little bit to learn how test-driven development does work. So as I said, we haven't been doing test-driven development because I think it's best if you see how testing works instead of learning actually TDD, because I feel like TDD is a technique that you should master once you know how testing works, right? So let's go ahead and create a new package, right? So what we're going to do is actually inside of the test folder, right? So remember, with TDD, we don't write the actual class, right? So we start with the actual test. So package, and then let's call this utils. And then inside of utils, go ahead and create a new class and simply say phone, and then number, validator, and then test. And then press enter, remove the public keyword, which is not needed. And there we go. What we're going to do is actually create a test and then create a class. And basically we want to go through a phase where we first create the test, and then we create the actual class, we run the test, it should fail, and then it goes green, and then we actually refactor, right? So let me actually show you what I mean. So right here in this picture, this is the actual test-driven development cycle. So we kind of start with a failing test, we make it pass, refactor, and then the test might fail, we make it pass, refactor, so on and so forth, right? So this is how test-driven development works, and I want to show you exactly how this works. So let's go back to IntelliJ, and right now, so this is the actual building blocks, right? So we have a testing class, we have no code whatsoever, right? No code whatsoever. And and now we can implement the actual full cycle, right? So what I want to show you actually is, so this phone number validator class that we're going to create in a second, this will be used inside of the customer registration service. So right here, so you see where we have the phone number, right? So we're not doing any validation right here. So let me add a to do here, right? So we're not doing a validation. So to do, and then validate that phone number is valid, right? And this is why we are creating this phone number validator test, and also the actual class, which we will create in a second. So this is all for this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop me a message. Otherwise, let's move on. So with our test, what we want to do is create a test that says it should, and then validate a valid, or actually let's simply keep it simple. It should validate phone number, right? So there we go. And right here, remember what we need to do is actually do the following. So inside of the setup method, let's go ahead and create a private and then phone number validator, right? There we go. And actually, sorry, let's call this under test as we've been doing. And now we're going to say under test equals to new, and then let's grab this, and there we go, right? So you can see that we don't even have this class, right? So if I try and run this, so let's try and run this test, you can see that you know, it hasn't compiled, right? So we get a compilation error, and this is because the phone number validator class does not exist, and this is part of test driven development, right? So now we need to go ahead and actually create the class. So let's go ahead and create the package, and then utils, and inside of utils we need a class called, so class, and then paste that in, and there we go. So now if I go back to my test, you can see that if I now try and run this test, this should work. There we go. So you see that it did work. So now that we have the first step out of the way, next let's go ahead and see how we're going to carry on with the building blocks of TDD. All right, so now that we have things compiling, and you can see that the test did pass a while ago, right? So this test right here, so if I run it again, you can see that it's working, but it's not doing anything. So what I want to do is, let's say given, so let's say given a phone number, right? So string and then phone number equals, and then let's simply say that this will be a UK phone number, so 447, and let's simply say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this is the actual length of a UK phone number, right? So we're going to keep things very strict just to UK phone numbers, but you can change this to support many different phone numbers, right? And obviously you should be using a library to validate phone numbers, but I want to keep things really simple so you see how it works. So let me go ahead and simply end this with semicolon, and now right here I'm going to say under test dot and then validate, right? So you see that let me pass the phone number. So if I try and run this again, there we go. So you see that we don't have a validate phone number, right? And also this should return a boolean. So let's simply say boolean, and then is valid equals to, and then that. And what we need to do is actually create this class. So all of this is part of test-driven development. So the actual testing is driving the actual development, right? So let me actually create the method. And what I'm going to do here is something a bit different, right? So right here, I'm going to say this implements a predicate, right? And this will take a string. There we go. And let me simply implement the methods test. So this will have a test method and not validate. So now let me go back and test, right? So this will be test. So now you see that currently we are returning false by default, right? So what we want is to say assert that, and then is valid, and let's import assert for j there, dot is, and then true, right? So let's run our test, and you see that the test run, but it did fail, right? So expected true, but actual false. And this is because, right? So this is because of this, oops, so this line right here, right? So this is when now we actually start implementing the logic for our phone number validator. So I just want you to see exactly how things are structured. I'm going to take baby steps in each video so you understand exactly how test-driven development works. So now that we have things compiling and the actual method that we want, which is the test, next let's go ahead and implement the actual logic to validate any given phone number. For the logic of our phone number validator, as I said, this is only for UK phone numbers. If you want to test for wider numbers, go ahead and use a phone number validator library. I think there's one from Google which is quite good, to be honest. So I wouldn't recommend you to implement your own phone number validator, but as I said, I want to show you exactly how test-driven development works. So right here, let's go ahead and simply say that. So right here, we want to make sure that the phone number, so instead of S, this will be phone number, right? So I want to make sure that the phone number, so phone number dot, and then starts with, right? So starts with plus, and then 44, and I think I'm just going to leave it there, right? So I think this will be a good building block, right? So I'm going to say if, so if, and then phone number starts with that, right? So I'm going to return and then true, otherwise false, right? I could actually inline this or simply say return and then remove that, and basically this is the exact same thing, right? So now let's go back to the actual test, right? So let's go back to the test, and if I pretty much just run this, you see this works, right? So now what I want to make sure also is, so let's say that this is like plus 4 2, right? So if I run this, you should see that the phone actually the test fails, right? So it is false. So let me go back, right? And I also want to make sure that, so right here, and right, and phone number dot and then length equals to 13, right? And that with semicolon, and let me put this on a new line so you see exactly everything, right? So now if I run this, you can see that it still passes. So now let me go ahead and pretty much just add another character there, and then there we go. You can see that it fails, right? Because the phone number right here, so the phone number has 14 characters. So there we go. So you see that this was very trivial, but obviously this logic right here is lacking lots of things, right? So we want to make sure, for example, there is only digits, right? So we're not checking for that, but I want to keep it super simple, so you see the entire process, right? So now I could go ahead and pretty much just grab all of this, right? And then right here, should validate phone number when incorrect. And here, let's simply, add a random number there. And basically, so this now is false, right? So we're testing here, or actually is incorrect, and has length bigger than than 13, right? So we could actually use this annotation, so at and then display, can't type today, so at display name, and basically now you could have bigger than 13, right? Should fail when length is and then bigger than 13. And there we go. So now we could take this and then right here, so let's remove that, and this will be so basically it doesn't have the 4, actually plus sign, when does not start with plus, when does not start with plus, and then sign, right? So now we can go ahead and run every single test in this test class. So run, just give it a second, and you can see that we have 3 tests that did pass. So there we go. So this is a taste of test driven development, right? So obviously if you were to let's say now you want to say that there is an extra thing here, or let's simply say that, for example, you changed your mind and now it should start with, for example, this, right? So 0 plus 4, 4, and then 45, right? So now if I run the test, this should fail. You see that we have 2 that actually did work, but there is 1 which failed. So this is the actual happy path, right? Because the starts with is different. So this is actually the actual full cycle, right? So you change, you refactor, you make it pass, so on and so forth. So this is actually test driven development. Now let me go back, and I think the logic is not what I want. I'm just going to leave it like that, and this is all for this video. So next I want to show you exactly how you are going to be able to condense all of this into one single test and have parameters into your test, which I think is much neater. All right, so let's improve this class right here and pretty much just have one single method that we can pass multiple parameters. So this is what we call as parameterized test, right? So right here, what I want to do is the following. So here I'm going to say at and then parameterized test, and it's not going to be a test anymore. And then right here at CSV source, just like that. And right here, so Command P, you can see that this takes a value. So the value will be, it's like an object, right? So this will be an object where we can pass the actual values, right? So actually we can pass the actual input and the expected value. So right here, so let's start from this test. So I'm gonna grab this, put it there, and I know that for sure this will be true, right? So true. And let me put this in quotes, just like that. And let's begin with this only test, right? And then we can change the rest. So now right here, this will take a string, and this will be input, and then this will be a boolean, and then this, well, actually I think they both have to be strings. I'm not quite sure, but we can test. So string and then expected, like that. And this actually has to be within the exact same string, right? Because we can have multiple ones. So for this phone number, we expect the value to be true, right? So now right here, I'm going to take the input, right? So input, and in fact, let's change it to phone number. So phone number, just like that. And now I can remove this, right? So when we test the phone number, which is this one right here, we expect that, right? So expect that is valid, and then is equal to, and then boolean dot value of, and guess what? Expected, right? So now let me go ahead and try and run this test to see if we haven't messed up anything. So there we go. You can see that it works. And right here, I hope you can see, I've just zoomed in so you can see that the first parameter is the valid phone number, and the expected value is true, right? So the test is working. So if I was to say false here, so false, run it, this should fail. There we go. It fails, right? Because the phone number is valid, right? So let me actually put that to true, and let me I'm just wondering whether I can pass a boolean here, right? So true. Let's see if this does the casting for us. So true, and then I don't need this. So I hope this works. So let me run it. And oh, wow, it works. So even better. So now what we can do is simply take this phone number, right? So let's take this phone number, and then right here, so we can, let me put this on a new line, just like this, and then comma, and then put the phone number there. This will be false, comma, and then let's grab this phone number, and there we go. This will be also false. And basically you can improve on this and have you know, the actual error message, why it's not valid, but I just want to keep it simple for now. And also I think I forgot to show you, so when we run the test, right, so let's run this test right here before I remove it, right? So you see that the display name, so this display name is what shows in here, right? So right here, should fail with plus, right? So if I remove that, it simply shows this as the actual display name. So now let me go ahead and remove all of this, all of these two tests, and check it out. So isn't this neat? Have a look. Beautiful. Now I can run one test and pass a bunch of arguments, and I can have my parameterized tests working beautifully. So if I now run it, you can see that they all work, and you can investigate the actual inputs, right? 1, 2, 3, and you can see the numbers and the tests are passing. So this is the beauty of parameterized tests. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop me a message. Next, let's go ahead and actually add this phone number validator class inside of the customer registration service, right inside of this class. So what we're going to do in this class, right, to make sure that we actually add the phone number validator is the following. So in here, let's go ahead and simply say private and then final and then phone number validator, right? So let me simply add the constructor to parameter, and I'm going to refactor. This is because we have to fix the test in a second. So there we go. Let me put this full screen. Now right here, what I'm going to do is the following. So if, and then phone number validator dot test, pass the phone number, right? So if it's not valid, I'm going to say throw new illegal state exception phone number and then plus phone number plus, I could use format, but whatever, is not valid, right? You could improve on the error messaging here, but I'm going to keep it simple. Now I can remove this. And now let me go to the actual test, right? So Command Shift T. And now guess what? We need to pass a mock, right? So we're going to mock this because we already tested that the phone number validator is doing what we want. So at and then mock private phone number validator. And there we go. Now let's, just for the sake of it, try and run every single test in this class, and I'm expecting things to fail. And there we go, right? So phone number is not valid for this one, this one, this one, and basically you can see that it's failing all over the tests. So let's go ahead and fix one by one. So starting with, it should save new customer. So right here. So what I'm going to say is valid phone number and then given and then phone number validator dot and then test and then phone number. And at this point, we don't really have to make this a valid phone number because we are mocking it, right? So dot will return and then true, right? So we want to make sure that we have valid phone numbers all around. So right here and right here, and also right here, right? So now if I run all the tests, so let's run all the tests, you can see that they now work. But what we need to do is add one extra test, because if I run this in with coverage, there we go. If I collapse this and this, go back to the class and the test, you see that we have this red line, which means that this isn't tested. So let's go ahead and add a test that covers this if statement when it falls under this line right here. So let's go back, and if I scroll down, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to copy this entire test. So it should save new customer. And as I've been saying with tests, you will copy and paste tests around and then change them slightly. So it should, and then not save new customer when phone number is invalid. There we go. So now what I need to do is, you see right here, so given phone number validated test phone number will return false, right? And right here, I know that, so right here, so I'm going to delete that, and then should have no interactions, just like that. Oops. So basically, so if I go back, right, so here, so if the phone number is not valid, we will throw an exception, therefore there is no interaction with the customer repository. So this is what I'm saying here, right? And now let's go ahead and run this test. Oops, so phone number is not valid. And why is that? Oh, actually, yeah, sorry. So I'm actually not asserting what I want to assert, right? So basically, I want to assert the actual exception. So there we go. So we want to assert that the exception is thrown dot has, or actually let's start with instance of illegal set exception dot class dot has message containing, and right here you see that this is the message, phone number, and then that. So let me paste that in. Oops, just like that. And right here, let me simply replace this with 2 pluses, and then pass the actual phone number. There we go. Now if I run the test, that was funny. There we go. So it passes, and also we don't need this given right here. So actually, let me go back so you can see. So this one here, right? So this one. So given customer repository, because we are saying that there should be 0 interactions with it. So let's make our test a bit faster, and there we go. So now let me go and run this with coverage. There we go. Now if I collapse this and this, and if I go back to the actual service, and now you can see that this line right here, so line 27, has been tested. So we have a good test coverage. So the last thing that we're going to do is actually, so we kind of made some changes, right, to the way our application works. So let's actually run now every single test, including our integration test, and see whether we have broken and see whether we've broken something or we need to fix some tests, right? So let me open the project tab, and right here, so I'm going to run every single test. So under this folder right here, or I think we can run, well, actually it doesn't recognize. So here, so where you see Java, so this green folder, or you can run the actual main package, right? So it doesn't matter. So we want to run every single test in here. So let's do that. So run all tests. Now we have a bunch of unit testing and integration tests. So let's see whether we've broken anything. And there we go. So we've broken the actual integration test. So it should create payment successfully. So this is actually broken. So let's investigate why. And it seems like we have an error saying no qualifying bean of type and then phone number validator. So let's actually, I think we are missing the actual annotation. So this is the benefit of having tests all around, right? So inside of, where is it? So yeah, so customer registration service, right here. So we are using this phone validator. So let's go and open it. And we are missing, of course, the ant and then service annotation. Let's now run the tests again, so you can see why having tests is so important, guys. Just give it a second. And it's still failing, so let's see why this time. So now there is an exception, and there we go. So phone number 000 is not valid, which means that, so let's open up the integration test quickly. So under payment integration test. So right here, so this is where we're actually testing the entire application, right? So making sure that everything can integrate correctly. So here, obviously, we have to now add a valid phone number. So +44 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and I think this is it. So let me actually now run all the tests again one last time, and hopefully this should work. So right click and then run all tests, and just give it a second. Hopefully everything works now, and there we go. So you see that every single test passed, which is amazing, right? So you can see that we have a bunch of tests that we've written throughout this course. So now hopefully you can start to see the benefit of having unit testing and integration testing, and basically testing your application to make sure that it works, right? To make sure that it works. So if you have any questions on what we've done in this section, go ahead and drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Okie dokie. I hope that you had fun learning test-driven development, and hopefully this was just a small taste, but I've simplified a lot of things, and you can see that those are the starting points, right? So if your service class becomes bigger and more complex, you try and write the test, and then the test will drive the actual development, right? So go ahead and actually experiment with our examples, and what I recommend for you next is to check out my full course on software testing. So with software testing, I will teach you everything that you need to know about testing. So we're going to learn about unit testing, integration testing, how mocking works, using assertion libraries, testing your database, right? So the queries that you have, testing external services such as Stripe and Twilio, and a bunch more. So in this course right here, so software testing, it will make you a complete tester, right? When it comes to making sure that whatever you write to production is tested properly, right? And also I'm going to show you how coverage or testing coverage works within IntelliJ to make sure that you actually are covering as much as possible. So if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, and also give me a thumbs up so I can keep on providing content like this. That's all for now. I'll catch you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum.